Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
And here we go. All right, well, for the first time ever, we've had an album in the ring twice. Kendrick Lamar's Damn, which last week beat Beck's Morning Phase, is going to fight against the all-time champion, Abbey Road from the Beatles. And we've got two fantastic judges who've been in the ring before. Of course, Mike LaPerry, who helps me out all the time in producing the show, and the one, the only, the most listened to live DJ in the universe, DJ Severe, who rocks the house in Blue Heaven, Dodger Stadium. DJ Severe, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think about this fight before we kick it off?
So let me talk about my lack of familiarity with Lamar when we started this. I had not listened to a full album from Kendrick, just a few singles here and there, and I am now a fan. This album was amazing. One of the best I've heard in the last couple of years as far as albums released recently. Then it goes up against Abbey Road, which is one of my favorite albums since I've been able to say the words favorite album as a sentence. I grew up on the Beatles. This album is just full of songs that bring back childhood memories. I've heard all of these songs dozens, if not hundreds of times. So this is really a tough one for me because this is something new that I really, really like versus something old that I've always loved.
Yeah. Severe, what about for you? What are your initial thoughts?
It's kind of the same. I have to confess, I am a very respectful fan of the Beatles. I'm not that versed in other than, the mainstays. Kendrick, to me, album super dope, and I'm kind of on the side because, being a little bit older, he is actually probably the mainstay for hip-hop today that you have to mention in the top 5. So, it's different battle, different elements. I like anytime I can be challenged to actually forced to kind of dive more into the Beatles, because like I say, sometimes it just goes over my head. I have a love and respect for it. And it's but the main cuts are the ones that grab me. Sometimes the stuff I have never really listened to, but this gave me a chance to kind of dive into it a little bit more. So I appreciated it.
Yeah, it's a crazy fight, and it was hard to get the Beatles in the ring with Abbey Road because of the structure of the album. They have that medley on the second half, and it really is tough. And like Mike, I'm only just got my toe in the water on Kendrick, but everything I've heard, I've loved. And you don't win the Pulitzer Prize by writing a crap album. It's a great album, and we put it in against Beck because Beck has also got a great album. These are all highly acclaimed albums, and that's what it takes to get in the ring against what is often referred to as the greatest album of all time. The one thing I did notice is the album structure versus the song v song structure that we use does not favor things like Abbey Road, where it's a whole body of work and not a bunch of individual tracks.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Let's get Richard's analysis.
There isn't a lot to say this week. Damn earned its way here in a tough fight, and Abbey Road as well. It's Abbey Road. Both are complicated and challenging albums, and albums made to be albums like they are supposed to. These aren't a collection of singles, although very popular. They are well thought out works of art. But how do they stack up when we pass them through the patent-pending number system? Let's have a look. Much like last week, we have a decisive winner when it comes to the numbers. Only this week, it isn't Kendrick Lamar's Damn. After looking at 13 parameters, the Beatles took 8. Kendrick Lamar only took 1. But before you start calling this a blowout, 4 of the categories, 2 popular and 2 critical, were dead ties. So much like last week's fight, don't count out the album that came up short on the numbers, because they are both super strong entries. Just like last week, I'm throwing in a human element here and saying it will be closer than the numbers suggest, and I'm saying we have a 7-6 win for Abbey Road. Strong rounds can be expected for the Beatles in 1, 2, and 7, and 4, 6, and 8 for Kendrick Lamar. Let's see how it goes. This is going to be a good one. Back to you guys.
And let's make sure we get Phil to do the corner call for us. Phil, introduce our fighters.
Today's album fight is a 14-round bout between two influential music heavyweights. In the red corner, the winner of last week's Challenger fight from the city of Compton, California, Kendrick Lamar, and his fourth studio album from 2017, Damn! And his opponents in the blue corner, we have the legendary foursome from the clubs of Liverpool, England, the Beatles, and their 11th studio album from 1969, Abbey Road. Let's get ready to ramble. Take it away, judges.
And as I thought with Richard's analysis, the numbers are hard to work with because we've got a 50-year-old record, and how we count things is different now. And so Kendrick's counting numbers, and I don't think Pulitzer Prize is even a category he considers. It makes it hard. But either way, we should just get going. Let's just start this thing. Round 1. Blood versus Come Together. Mike, why don't you go ahead and do round 1?
Okay, well, dude, Blood is a really good start to this album. I had to listen to the whole album twice, get really a feel for Kendrick Lamar. Plus, I listened to it for the last album fight where it went up against Beck. A little bit more familiar the second time through. The spoken word rap is very chilling, telling a story with a pretty chilling ending. A lot of imagery comes up with that whole story about helping a blind woman. She turns around and shoots him. Just, again, chilling. This song is very unique, but it's just too short to compete against Come Together. Come Together is a great way to kick off a 50-year-old album. It's one of the most funky Beatles songs there is. It's got that crunchy guitar that continues to shoot with the bass line coming right underneath it throughout the song, which is just John Lennon saying shh. The production values are just clear from song 1 that they really knew what they were doing by the time they did Abbey Road. And given the nature of this song, the harmonies are still super tight, which, of course, it's the Beatles. So Kendrick came to this fight with his gloves laced up tightly, but there's really no competition in round 1. Blood is just too short a song to really make any headway against Come Together, but it's still a damn good song and good enough to not get knocked down. I go Beatles 10-9.
What about you, DJ Severe? How did you have round 1?
Blood, to me, this is different because, you listen to more hip-hop and having listened to more Kendrick albums, I thought it was a solid intro that kind of led you into. And intro tracks sometimes count as tracks for hip hop because sometimes as DJ, especially, you might use a intro or a intermission or to use track. So Blood to me was solid, especially not knowing what you were going to get from this Kendrick album. It had a nice beat. I like the way it set up the album, but also going up against Come Together, which is, like I said, me being kind of a Beatles novice, that's one of the staples I know. Solid track. I might have scored them both the same, but because Come Together is, dope intro. I like the production on it, and then trying to compare the two production wise from 50 years ago to like now, still solid, but definitely that's that Beatles intro. So I kind of would probably give the Beatles definitely a more of a slighter notch because that's a track compared to the intro track, but both solid to me.
So if you're going to break the tie, what do you think? What's your final number on this? Is it 10-9 or is it 10-10?
I would lean, like I said, 10. I would lean more towards the Beatles and give them,
So you're saying 10-9 Beatles, is that right?
Right.
Then my numbers for round 1 are this. So Blood has roots from the same time as the Beatles, that early 70s, late 60s bass line, very spot on for the era. You're reminded of things like Marvin Gaye and Simon and Garfunkel with the sounds of this album. He's setting the tone, like you guys said. This isn't a full track. And if you're not exactly up to the task to be out there full song with any band, intro tracks are a risk. And I think, definitely Kendrick pays a bit of a price. This is a 10-9 round for me. Come Together. This is what the Beatles do here. All these different sounds, the ideas. This is a great band doing their best album, and what a fantastic start. So 10-9, Beatles, round 1. All right, round 2. Mike, why don't you kick us off? Something versus DNA.
DNA was amazing. The first time I heard it, I was like, what the hell? This is amazing. The intelligence in the lyrics are off the chart. This is why this album won a Pulitzer Prize. Talking about everything that's within himself and tying it back to his DNA, his heritage. But that's genius. I've never heard anyone do that. This was, hey, this is why this guy has been so much about him, but this track left me wanting to hear more. Then it goes up against Something. Something is a top 5 Beatles song, period. I think for a lot of fans, it's number 1. You'd be hard-pressed to find a Beatles fan in this world that doesn't rank it in their top 5, top 3. My dad does not like the Beatles. He's always very critical of the Beatles, yet he loves this song. You go through Something, it's just a beautiful love song. It's well-constructed. It's well-produced. It's been covered. I was trying to dig it up. I'm sure Pete has the number when he does his analysis, but it's been covered probably dozens, not hundreds of times. This was a close round. Probably the first and not the last time I'm going to use the word damn, but damn, this is a tough round. I ended up going with Iconic beating Amazing by about a millimeter. I'm giving the Beatles 10-9.
For me, I had a round 2 going like this. Something is probably the best track on this album, and this is apex Beatles. There is no higher point after this. If there was a higher point earlier in the career, fine, that can be the peak, but this is the band at their best, doing their best, and there is nothing finer than Something. DNA, sex, money, murder, that's our DNA. Holy shit, that's heavy, and there's a lot of chaos in this album in general, in the song. But the street vibe continues. This isn't really a love song. It's more of a declaration of who he is. It's gritty. It's dangerous, and I'm starting to get an idea that this might be a concept album where he's going to kind of go on this autobiographical journey for us. And it's interesting to see. But this is a pillar song for the Beatles, and that is saying something about something. So this is 10-9 Beatles. DJ Severe, how did you have round 2?
Okay, so here we go. I'll start with the Beatles. Again, this is like a track that I had never heard. And so going into it, I said, okay, this is different because other than the signature ones that are standouts, hadn't really listened to a lot of. But I love the story because this song from beginning to end kind of drew me in because I had no idea where it was going. I love the story, first off. And I think I gave it a 9. DNA was such a hard, dope hip-hop track that hit right after the intro. And I've used it so much and knowing it so much, and then just the storyline behind it. DNA just edged it out with a 10. But I got to say, kudos. And I understand this Something track from the Beatles actually brought me in and made me become a little bit more aware of what the draw totally is for the Beatles. Like I said, I always respected them. But then to kind of get the introspective on the deeper cuts and in the storylines and to see the genuine greatness of how they wrote songs, I had to give it. I'm becoming more of a fan based off of that. But it was hard against DNA. DNA, such a strong hip hop track in the day when we have just a bunch of nothingness out there. So I still had to give the edge to DNA 10-9.
Yeah, and let me just, on your behalf, you have a massive catalog of music, not only in your head, but at your fingertips. And so when you go to a song a lot, that says something about the usefulness of that song and the power of it. And so I get it. This is a very tight very, very tight round. This is not 10-8, not even close. I know there's people that would be upset about DNA beating Something, but this is, you're a pro. You do this, and you recognize it and still came back with 10-9. I dig it. Let's go ahead and do round 3, Ya versus Maxwell's Silver Hammer. So I'll start this one off. Ya is probably the weakest of the 3 songs thus far, but that's okay. You know, he's doing good work here. He's moving. He's establishing time, and I think this is just more of kind of a fun song, which coincidentally is what Maxwell's Silver Hammer is. This is Paul being jingly, and he's great at that. And this is kind of that baby music that John Lennon would complain about. But the thing here is, of the two songs, I honestly like the newness and the freshness and the liveliness of Kendrick's song a whole lot better. I personally like Maxwell Silver Hammer, but I can't in the ring say it beats Yah. So for me, 10-9 Kendrick. Mike, how did you have it?
Maxwell Silverhammer, every time I hear that song, I see Martin performing in that god-awful / amazing Sgt. Pepper movie from the late 70s, early 80s. You remember it, Pete?
Oh, yes.
It's at the same time horrible and amazing. I can't really phrase it any other way. It's a wacky song. That was probably my first experience hearing it before I actually heard the Beatles version. It's Paul trying to be clever. It's an upbeat song with a really dark theme. It's basically about a guy who murders people with a silver hammer with a catchy tune. And then of course, there's the drug references that happen later on with Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which makes it even a little bit more dark. The funny thing is the other three Beatles absolutely the song by the time that they were done recording it. Paul had them spend 3-4 days recording it because he's a perfectionist. And I don't hear perfection when I hear it. I just hear a catchy tune. Then you've got Yah, which is really a time for Kendrick to shine against a slightly weaker track. And I really think he does. I love the lyrics in this track. It's catchy, but like everything else so far, there's a ton of depth. One of the lyrics that I remembered and wrote down, "Don't call me black no more, that word is only a color, it ain't facts no more." That's impressive lyrics in what is kind of just a catchy third song on what's turning out to be a pretty amazing album. Yah is not quite amazing enough to knock down Maxwell's Silver Hammer, but clear winner here, 10-9 Kendrick.
How about you, Severe? How did you have round 3?
Okay, so this one's different for me. Yah was, when I was first listening to the Kendrick album, first off, it was dope because this is the first introduction to Kid Capri on the Kendrick album, which is going to be on several more cuts. And you also introduce him as Kung Fu Kenny. I thought the Yah, the beat is incredible for me, and the hook. But on the other side of the coin with the Maxwell Silver Hammer, I have never, ever listened to this song in my life. But when I heard it, the thing that drew me to this song was not only the beat and the use that I could potentially see it being like a sample, if you could ever sample and pay for a sample for a Beatles hit, but as a hip hop, it reminded me of a song that like maybe the UMC, someone like to use in the 90s when it had more backpack style like rap. So that's why, to me, the Beatles, Maxwell Silver Hammer beat them out. It's just the catchiness and the originalness in the beat drew me in, and actually that's why I gave it a 10 over the Yah, because I love Yah. Yah was one of my favorite Kendrick tracks, but just compared to this, and I can see why this would be not so much of a favorite of Beatles fans, but it just drew me in from the beginning.
That's Paul McCartney doing what Paul McCartney does with that catchy ass shit he does.
Yeah, and that's why even this I became more of a fan. But just in the sample, just to listen to the whole song and seeing the different things that you might be able to use as the sample, I was just drawn in from the beginning. That's why I edged out Yah. And it's funny, just for the hip hop element of it.
Yeah, that's great. I never thought of it that way, but it really does have some catchy pieces. I like that idea. Seriously. It's amazing.
Let's do round 4, Oh Darling versus Element. DJ Severe, kick us off.
Okay, so Element, I thought was so dope because it wasn't your typical Kendrick lyrics, and he kind of did something different. The beat was dope, and once again, I use this track a lot, and it's one of the ones that drew me in right from the beginning. This is one I play at the stadium a lot, and I usually use it to pump up the crowd after we do Take Me Out to the Ball Game, because it has the Compton reference and the chants, like the fans like to chant when we get to the part. So Element was just a hands down. The beat's incredible. The lyrics are super dope. Going up against Oh Darling, which another track I never heard, drew me in also. This is like, you gotta understand, this is a different fight for me because I'm hearing these tracks for the first time. The thing that drew me into Oh Darling was the beat drum change and the different elements and the way that it rolled. I had to give that a tie in 10-10 because they both had the same things from
10-10. The tie. You're just full of love. You're like, I don't hurt anybody's feelings. Everybody gets 10.
I mean,
he even gave Mike a 10.
It's such a different thing where I'm using the track and I discover a track, and it's just like I can see myself actually using this track the same way. I mean, because I would love to. This is something that when you get to those open format DJ sets where you like looking for tracks to play that people haven't heard, and they'll come up and ask you, what is that track? You know what I mean? Especially if it's a more 90s hip hop feel and you can get something that you can use to ride you into another track. But just the way the beat, bro, and this, again, even in these Beatles tracks, I'm trying to figure out who the genius is because I've heard so much about them. You know what I mean? And then automatically you think Paul McCartney, but then, you're just wondering who came up with this and then how did this, come about.
Well, Mike, how did you have round 4?
Well, I want to start out by saying every time I score a tie, you kick my ass. So Severe gets away with it and I don't. That's not fair at all.
I'm giving him the business. Yeah, I'm giving him the business. You just.
All right. Let's kick this off. Element for me, ironically, is the song that takes me out of my element. So I've already said before, I'll say it again. I am not a hip hop expert, not by any means. I mean, you just look at me and I do not look hip hop at all. I don't sound hip hop at all, but I do have an appreciation. I mean, I was a big Beasties fan in the day when they first hit the scene. I loved Run DMC when they first hit the scene. I think modern hip hop just escapes me a little bit. This song had some of what I don't like in modern hip hop. I wasn't really sure if he was trying to be ironic or not when he was, when he put together some of the lyrics in here that do a lot of the things that hip hop really gets criticized a lot for. The song didn't work for me simply because I couldn't really figure out multiple listenings whether he was doing it to be ironic or whether he was doing it because he wanted to do a song more like this. I love the beat. The beat's dope. I'm quoting you now, Severe.
All good.
But going up against... Here's a song that's technically sound and not a bad song at all. What I put on my notes, this would be a great song for anyone not named Paul McCartney. Paul wrote a great song, does some amazing vocal acrobatics, but I really think that this song would have sounded even better if John sang. John has that raspy voice without really putting work into it. Paul has to force his voice to be a little bit more raspy. So he does some really cool vocal acrobatics. But this is a sign that the Beatles weren't all completely happy, because I think 2 or 3 years before this, I would have just given the song to John and say, hey, mate, you can sing this better. It would be the best song on many albums. It is not the best song on Abbey Road. This is around Kendrick could have won with maybe even a knockdown, in my opinion, with nearly any other song on his album. But because I just didn't connect with Element, I give this one to the Beatles 10-9.
Good notes, Mike. Really good notes. So, same kind of thing for me. Oh, Darling, it's a classic Beatles tune. They're doing the kind of the 50s callback, a little bit of bluesy action, and I totally agree. John should have sung this song, and I completely agree. If you caught the Beatles on a better day, they would have had John sing this song because his voice naturally gets there, and instead of working hard and doing backflips to make Paul's voice do what John's voice naturally does, you make the more elegant call, and so they don't get this one exactly right. And probably this song comes from a different era, too, for them, so it kind of doesn't fit era-wise with what's happened on Abbey Road. I mean, I know it's recorded and it's there for them, and they use it and people love it, but this song probably, goes on Revolver or Rubber Soul or something earlier. Element, we're saying this already, but Kendrick gets to a deeper place than the Beatles do thus far in the album, and what's being delivered from him and Kid Capri in the song, I just think Element is a very, very good song, and they're both messing with some era stuff, but I'm gonna let the young kid beat the old man in this one. It's 10-9 Kendrick for me. Let's start up round 5. Mike, go ahead and give it to us for Feel versus Octopus's Garden.
This is a great comeback from Element. This immediately reconnected me to the album. I think it's rare for a hip-hop artist to bear their feelings as much as Kendrick does in this song. I mean, he just rips open his chest and says, hey, here's my heart. Here's what I got to say about what I feel. The rapping here, it's just rapid fire. It doesn't let off. He's, instead of boxing, let's use like a racing analogy, he's got his foot on the pedal all the way down from the beginning of the song to the end of the song. But the lyrics are just so deep, really deep. Feelings of isolation coupled with high expectations. I'm alone here. Ain't nobody praying for me, but everybody expects me to do amazing things. This song I'm getting chills now talking through my notes. This was one of the songs here that I really, really connected with. Then we got Octopus's Garden. So, hey, Ringo, thanks for another catchy tune. This is actually really a great song just putting the two against each other, they're very, very different. As complex and deep as Feel is, Octopus's Garden is exactly as simple and cute. Octopus's Garden is one of those earworms stuck in my head after, but I wasn't upset about having this song stuck in my brain. But I think just the depth of Feel beats out the catchiness and cuteness of Octopus's Garden. I think Kendrick takes this one 10-9.
Yeah, so for round 5, Feel and Octopus's Garden. And this isn't really fair because Octopus's Garden, what am I supposed to do? I mean, this is a silly song that honestly, if this wasn't a Beatles song, no one would care about this thing. It's cute, it's fun. I mean, George Harrison delivers something that actually matches the goofy lyrics that Ringo Starr comes up with. Like, take this song and put it on Appetite for Destruction or Straight Outta Compton or Joshua Tree or The Wall, and it's just it's a silly joke of a song, so it doesn't fit in this album either necessarily. And then you have an actual song from like Feel, and I just think that Kendrick is doing fantastic work here. If you look at how these albums go together, for sure Abbey Road gets penalized because of the full album, like one piece of art structure it has. But I will say this about Kendrick, though. I'm getting a little bit of ear fatigue in him kind of going down the same path again, and I hope that he's able to keep this autobiographical tone interesting enough so that I'm not just worn out from the negativity and the day in the life visceral stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But I've got this one 10-9 Kendrick. Severe, how did you have round 5?
Well, I kind of too felt the same way. Feel, super dope track. Again, I like the beat change and the production. The production on this whole album was spot on and solid for me. Like you said, the lyrics are hard, and it's different because from a person who's probably listens to a lot more hip hop than my two counterparts here, and a lot more garbage hip hop where they're not saying anything, it's kind of refreshing. Or, at least he's saying something. You know what I mean? Yeah. I get it that it's kind of the same storyline, but then that's always been Kendrick's type of thing, like, more give you, because when Kendrick is always, when he's somewhat talked about in those people of hip hop today, and people are always, looking for somebody to say something. So I think that's why Kendrick always tries to say something. I get it. It could become a little overwhelming at times if it's just all negative and based off of like upbringing. But again, hard lyrics. I love the beat change and the production. And on the Beatles side, on Octopus's Garden, which at first the title grabbed me, I never heard it. The main thing I thought was so super dope about this was the production and the guitar, solid guitar and just intro, drove me in. And again, I'm always looking for like sample type things to go on. Interesting, we scored it the same way. It was 10-9 across the board. But I did love this track. Listen to it all the way through, and then just the guitar intro is what drew me in. I gotta say, everything on this Beatles album drew me in from the beginning, especially for a person like that's just a fresh mind for me, something that's opened up to me. So I was drawn in from the beginning. But I think we all felt the same way on both.
It's great that you're discovering one of the greatest albums of all time, right. And Mike and I are discovering one of the greatest albums of all time. Right. I love the album fight for this reason. Let's do round 6. I Want You, She's So Heavy versus Loyalty. And I'll start this one off. So this is more like it right here. This is the Beatles. They're tight. They've been tight for years. They have no gaps in what they do. And John's songcraft here is on the elite level. I don't necessarily have a need for the white noise later on in the song, but that kind of goes to the element of the time where I think some white noise accidentally leaked into the song, so they just kind of went with it, which is something you wouldn't have to do now. But we've got the makings of a very, very good song here, and I love the cold cut at the end. And the Beatles are a groove band a lot in this album, and the groove stands out. One of the things we learned from Allie Willis was you don't let words get in the way of the groove, and she learned that from Earth, Wind, and Fire, so that's true. So sometimes the word choice doesn't have to necessarily be perfect. It's just this heavy song. It's about love, and it's celebratory, but yet heavy, because love can be heavy. Versus Loyalty, and we get a chance to have Rihanna in the song, and you look at all the different titles of the track here. They're singular words: DNA, element, loyalty, all these different things, and it's really a great way to paint the life that Kendrick is trying to portray in this album, and I really love what he does. This is a tough round for them, though. I'm going to say this is I Want You, She's So Heavy is just a notch better, and that's going to be because it's hard to beat the champ, and this is the champ. Let's be honest. So, Beatles 10-9. DJ Severe, how did you have round 6?
Round 6. So this is a tough one for me. Loyalty, Quietly, is my favorite track on this album, and the reason why is different for Kendrick. The beat I thought was bananas. And to me, Rihanna killed Kendrick on this track.
She did.
This is one of my favorite tracks. To bring Rihanna in, which I'm a fan of Rihanna for other different reasons, but for the way she spit on this track, I spin this track over and over and over again because just on the Rihanna part. And I actually start with the Rihanna part. Like I said, the beat is solid. Rihanna kills it. Kendrick.
Mike, how did you have this round?
Loyalty is arguably one of the best tracks on the album. I'm not sure, since I'm still a neophyte when it comes to Damn, if I really think this is the best track on the album, but I would put it in the top 2 or 3 for sure. Rihanna shows up, but I think she did what a featured artist should do, which is supporting the main artist without really overpowering them. And she can be an overpowering presence.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business, or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
And she can be an overpowering presence in her own songs and in some of the other duets that she's done. She just blows the other person out of the water. I think she gave enough respect to Kendrick to come in when she needed to, kill it when she needed to, and then back off and let him do his thing when he needed to. And I love hearing Shimmy Shimmy Ya. That was amazing. This is everything a duet should be. It was a great hybrid of singing and rapping, which is my personal sweet spot in the hip hop world. I'm more of a singer, Pete. Used to when I was younger. When there's a good mix of singing and rapping, it really draws me in personally a lot more into the hip hop world because I like people that are that double threat where they can rap, but they can also sing. So Loyalty is just an amazing. I really, really dug it. This is one of the first ones where I went back in the button in Spotify to add it to my personal playlist.
Nice.
You've got I Want You, She's So Heavy. Okay, John, we get it. You really, really like Yoko a lot. But this song is bordering on 8 minutes long. A lot of lustful reminders throughout from John. He really, really gets into it lyrically. Love Billy Preston's organ throughout. There's amazing guitar work from John, who has always been an underrated guitarist. And some really amazing work from George, too, who's not underrated, but deservedly not underrated. You got solid drumming from Ringo throughout. He's such a great timekeeper. I don't think he gets enough credit for being a drummer, being a good drummer, and keeping the Beatles grounded. And a driving, but maybe a little under-mixed line from Paul. While musically solid, and this is the fucking Beatles. So even quote, bad songs are better than what anyone else can produce. I'm saying it's the Beatles. They don't do anything bad. The word meandering popped into my head at about 5 minutes in. It just goes on probably a bit longer than it should have. I've always loved the abrupt cut at the end, even before I learned to appreciate music more the way I do now, because I just thought it was really cool the way it just cuts off. But given the song length already, a slow fade would have just added to the time that was maybe running along already. And it's a lustful song, and doesn't lust always end suddenly, guys?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So where I went with this score-wise, it was close. I think the length of the Beatles track is really what did them in. And so this round goes to Kendrick, 10-9.
Round 7. Pride versus Here Comes the Sun. And I guess Severe kicked this one off for us.
So here we go. Round 7. Pride. Another Beatles track. I'll start with the Beatles. Here Comes the Sun is one of the tracks that I know as Beatles in my somewhat not so knowledgeable Beatles. But Here Comes the Sun, I just say that's just a solid track, and it's what I know from the Beatles, which is why, hands down, it was going to be hard for me when I went over to Pride. That's why I gave Here Comes the Sun a 10. So that's just a knockout Beatles track for me. Pride, Kendrick to me was kind of like one of the lesser tracks on this album. It didn't keep my attention, especially after Loyalty, it didn't keep my attention. So it just kind of like, it was kind of the same. It was a lesser humdrum track for me. Production's still good and still stable, but it just didn't catch me. So, and then trying to go up against Here Comes the Sun, that's one of the Beatles songs I can't say that I love. It was hard, so that's why I gave it the Beatles 10 and Kendrick 9.
Mike, go ahead and do round 7 for us.
Wow, this round was really, really, really tough, and I'll tell you why. I'll start with Pride. Pride is a beautiful song. I love how Pride is going to be the you and me at the beginning of it. I think it's repeat, just an echo, but it's not. It's 3 yous and 1 me. I think Pride does really kick people in their own ass a lot of the time, and that's really what it's saying here. Musically, this song actually reminded me of the Cocteau Twins, believe it or not, which is a weird thing to hear on a hip-hop album. But it reminded me of the Cocteau Twins so much that I queued up Treasure after I finished the album Fight and was winding down. The lyrics both tell a story about how pride can screw up friendships, relationships. The lyric that stuck with me was, I can't fake humble just because your ass is insecure. That I've seen so many times throughout my life of, I've got to be humble because you need to feel better about yourself. Yeah, I don't think so. There's a section early on where it sounds like playing with the vocal pitch. I wasn't sure if that was done in the mix or done by the artist. I'm kind of nitpicking because these are two really good songs and I want to come up with a winner. You know, when you're looking at 2 solid 10s, you got to start digging in and figuring out which one lets down where so you can come up with a winner. Then I go to Here Comes the Sun. This is personally one of my favorite songs, period. No qualifier. Not favorite Beatles song, not favorite 60s song. This is just one of my favorite songs. I've heard this song, I've listened to this song maybe hundreds of times at this point in my life. It's a great performance from start to finish. Great harmonization, great playing by each member of the band all around. If I had to pick a nit, and I did, I think the lyrics are mixed a bit low against the synthesizers in the Sun, 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 Here It Comes section. Again, the only flaw I could find in this song. And it's a small flaw at that. Here I go once again. Iconic beats amazing. And in this case, it's not even by a millimeter, it's by a half a millimeter. I picked a winner because I don't like doing ties. And it's not just because Pete kicks my ass every time I do a tie. So I give this one to the Beatles 10-9. Barely.
All right, so round 7 for me, Pride, and Here Comes the Sun. So this is more the same with Pride, and like you said, DJ Severe, like we just heard something really special, and Pride is in Loyalty, and Pride is just not quite that. You know, as a body of work, Kendrick is doing great. I love the singular word song titles. And he's describing something that I don't know what it's like to be a black man from Compton. I just don't know. So I'm learning a lot and I'm really enjoying it. However, Here Comes the Sun is not just a hit. It's a song that's transcended out of music and it's just part of our lives. You might sing it when you're waking somebody up. You might hear it selling coffee on an ad or something. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's sweet. And this is an easy 10-9 for the Beatles for me. How about round 8, Mike? Humble versus Because.
Following Pride with Humble, really, they go hand in hand from an idea perspective. There's tons of clever lyrics throughout Humble, really catchy, really catchy. I love the beat, but this is a lot like Element for me in that the song didn't connect with me for some reason. I don't know why. It's just me personally, maybe. I think this song, in my mind, was a missed opportunity, and I felt it was one of the weaker tracks on the album. I'd say on another, even maybe on another Kendrick album, it would be better. But 8 tracks in, I'm expecting more from Kendrick. And then I look at Because, and I say Because is a blown opportunity from the Beatles. because Humble didn't really do it for me, but because doesn't bring enough to really take advantage. It's a great performance and quite possibly one of the best, most complex and layered harmonies in the Beatles catalog. The synthesizers are just goofy and dated, and they don't make this a great song. Knockdown for me has to be a great, an average song. So I give this one to the Beatles, but not decisively. I'll give you my score in a second. Actually, I'll give you my score now. It's 10-9, Beatles. But after writing that, I did a little bit more digging into the songs themselves online versus just my listening and my opinion. I saw the awards that Humble got, and so obviously I don't know shit about shit. But I'm not changing.
My notes on round 8 are pretty simple. Humble, this is a cool song when people talk about Kendrick Lamar leading and doing things. Like, we interviewed Stuart Copeland. He said his daughter, I asked him, who's doing this stuff right now? Who's out in front like you guys were in your police days? And he said, my kids tell me it's Kendrick Lamar, so that's my answer. And he was right. His kids knew what they were talking about. Oddly enough, both of these songs really are heavily based on a keyboard-based motif. I mean, one has a harpsichord, but it's keys-based, and I really can appreciate how sometimes these things line up. Humble is a very good song, and Because is... okay, it's hard to call it rock. It's a transitional song as we're trying to get into this medley on the backside, and so it's not really what it's kind of like the same penalty that Kendrick got for his first song introducing the album. So by the slimmest of margins for me, this is Kendrick 10-9. What about you, Severe? What did you do?
Okay, so immediately when we got to Humble, I had to go back to when Humble was first released. Humble was the first track that was really kind of sneak release when nobody even knew Kendrick was coming out with an album. And it hit so hard for everybody. Just the fact that you had the lyrics like a syrup sandwich. He misses a syrup sandwich, which is a staple, you know what I mean? And Black Hole. But this song hit so hard at a time, there was nothing else going on. So it came out and it was just a buzz. And it was one of those ones where everybody was running to YouTube to find it, running to your record pools to find it. It hit so hard. And even for me on the side of playing at the stadium, it's one of the first songs that I've ever had the opportunity of hearing 50,000 fans chant, "My left stroke just went viral." Yeah. And it's like every time we got to that part, it just, the whole stadium, from the first time I couldn't believe how they did it until the second point when I played it, I just dipped out the song and then they chanted it right on time. So it was like a whole stadium just to do that was incredible. There's so many different elements to when Humble was released that just make it just a knockout 10 for me. And it's interesting to hear Mike's perspective on not being connected from the way everybody else was connected to it, and it just took off. Because for me was a dope track. It was just a little bit lacking in the beat, and I have never heard it before. It was the first time I heard it. It just didn't have any other elements to drag me in as far as sample wise or what I could possibly do with it. But it was a solid track. That's why I gave Humble a knockout 10 to the Beatles because of 9, which is still a solid song.
Well, I don't know shit about shit. So yeah, you're right.
All right, well let's get into round 9. Lust versus You Never Give Me Your Money. Lust uses a reverse bass. And there are times when that shit is dope, like when the Beastie Boys did it. I liked it a lot. I'm just a little let down by this song and that choice. I hear a lot of great influences, though. I heard Curtis Mayfield. I heard the Beasties, of course. I heard Outkast in this song. Those strings are kind of reminiscent of disco. I don't like fake sounds when you're making something special like this. Like, if you're recording it in Studio City or anywhere in LA, you can get someone to bring some keys in or some strings in or some drums in and really do it. So, and I don't know, Severe, this is what I think about this song. There's just too many ideas. It's a bit of a ransom note where he's just cut all these different ideas together, and it doesn't quite work like the last song did. I mean, it's just, when you compare the two together, you go, yeah, I'd rather hear Humble than Lust. So, I don't know. It's just a lot of Outkast in the song, too. Maybe a little bit too much.
Okay.
And then You Never Give Me Your Money. You don't step into the ring against the Beatles with a song where it's like, it's a bit of a cut and paste kind of song, like Lust is. And that's probably unfair to call it that. But You Never Give Me Your Money is just fantastic. The changes of pace, George Harrison on the guitar. Goodness gracious. Look, the thing is, I actually see Kendrick wobble here, and I want to give him a knockdown because I just don't like the Frankenstein nature of Lust, but I'm nicer than that. So I'll go Beatles 10-9. Severe, how did you have round 9?
After Humble, and to hear it go into Lust, which to me falls slightly after Loyalty as one of my favorite tracks. I liked the change up for Kendrick. And it's funny because I know sometimes people like change up. It was a change up for me just in like normal Kendrick. I listened to like different subtleties in between and in certain parts that, you know, from a DJ's perspective, which is why Lust to me was like it's probably my second favorite track on that, which is probably why I gave it a 10, because sometimes one of my favorites, they're your favorite song, so you're going to grade them a little bit higher. And then You Never Gave Me Money from the Beatles. I never, again, this is another track I never listened to, but the track to me was so dope, and the ride of the guitar, which I'm really starting to just respect the Beatles even more just for just some of the guitar runs and the way they ride the track. It was a hard one for me, and the only reason why Kendrick edged him out is because Lust is like my second favorite track on the album. But You Never Give Me Money, first off, the story's dope, the title's dope, but the guitars was even better. So that's why Kendrick only edged him out, just because that's my second favorite track on the album.
So are you saying 10-9? Okay, 10-9 for Kendrick. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I think we. Oops, I'm jumping ahead.
No, but Mike, go ahead, Mike. Give us your thoughts on the round because it is your turn.
I think we all scored this as a close round. It sounds like this was one of the closest rounds for me. Also, I thought Lust had a really funky beat. Was unique without being weird. That's that backmasking that you're talking about. I didn't know how Lust tied in until I really dug into the lyrics to read through it, as opposed to just listening through it. It seems like a day in the life type song. It's catchy, but when you dig deeper to what he's talking about, the lust he's talking about seems to be the lust with comfort versus the drive to have to actively do something different. I think a lot of this had to do with the election, the way he wrote it, and how he was saying, you can't be mad today and then just fall into your routine again tomorrow. You got to stay mad if you're mad. There's a lot of depth when you really listen to it. This is one of those kind of deceptive songs where you just listen to it without really listening to it, and you're just like, nodding your head, bobbing along. It's got a beat, it's kind of funky, but really listen. This is why the guy won the Pulitzer, because he's got a deeper message in most of his songs. And you've got You Never Give Me Your Money, which is the kickoff for what a lot of people call the side 2 medley. It's one of the better pieces of this 16-minute 9-song opus that's really kind of the coda of the Beatles' career. Love the piano in the middle. I think it gets buried if you don't listen to it in headphones. And again, there's great Beatle harmonies throughout. These guys have been singing together now for a decade. They know each other's voices as well as they know their own. There's strong guitar work here from John and George. Another tough round. I don't do ties anymore.
Yes.
I gave this one to the Beatles just barely. And I think right now the historic significance is starting to creep into my judging just a little bit, in that this is really where the Beatles are starting to say, okay, we had a good run, we're kind of finished here. So I gave this to the Beatles 10.
All right, great. Round 10, Love versus Sun King. What do you got for me, DJ Severe?
So Love, and like you said, you're starting to get to the second side of these albums. And then for where Lust did it for me, Love to me, just like one of the tracks that kind of fell off. It's still a solid track, more poppy, more singy. It's, definitely a slower track, more pop, singy. It was hard for me, especially on a DJ perspective, to spin it because there's nothing it fits with that I could use. I got it. I totally understood it. I gave it a 9. I like Zakari. Forward to hearing some more stuff like from her, but that was solid. Now, compared to Sun King, which is also another track I had never heard from Beatles, a very dope vibe. And they were kind of like, to me, it was different. These were kind of like similar to me. I got the same vibe from both of these. I don't know if it's just the vibe I was on. And I ended up giving them both 9s, which now that I know P hates ties, I won't do that anymore. But
and it's a 10-point must. So the win of the round has to have 10 points.
Yeah. It is so hard for me to give, and it's only in my mind of hearing critics critique where the Beatles are such a great group. I cannot give them an 8. I don't think I could ever give them an 8 on anything. But I got the same type of vibe from both. And then actually the Kendrick song could have got an 8 from me because it just falls so far, and any of my favorites are playing from Kendrick. So basically 9-9, they both gave me the same vibe. So I'll give them a vibe tie.
Okay, so we got to go 10-10 then, because it's 10-point must. So the winner of the round gets 10 points.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Another tie, man. You're taking the tie. You're taking tie message away from me.
I know. Well, he's not going to do ties anymore.
Yeah, I'm not going to do ties anymore.
All right, round 10, Love versus Sun King. For me, I'll keep it simple. Well, you got to beat the champ, and both of these songs have issues and strengths. Sometimes mixing of all the sounds and all of the different ideas that Kendrick seems to like to do is a little bit too much. And there are so many ideas in this song in particular that really stood out for me, where I'm like, oh, I just wish you would explore that idea right there for 3 minutes instead of just exploring it for 30 seconds and then moving on to the next thing. So I think that the song has a little bit of Prince in it, and I wish that he would slow down and tell me a little bit more about love and use fewer ideas and just give me that one aspect of love that really resonates with him. Sun King, also, this is the band slowing down. They catch a groove, and again, the words lose their meaning, and so all of the who cares what the heck they're saying? It's the groove, that doom doom doo doo. That's what you want out of this thing, is where they take you, and the hanging and the floating feeling that the Beatles create. Not many bands have the ability to do that, to put you in so many different mindsets in an album. So for me, this is an easy 10-9. Mike, round 10. Go ahead and do yours.
So Love is another strong entry with that singing, rapping combination that I love so much. I think it was a well-crafted love song. Fits well into the album, but it is kind of a letdown. I'm really looking forward to listening to this album uninterrupted all the way through, as opposed to the funky format we have to use for Album Fight, where we do track. Right. My instincts tell me this album was definitely built to flow well from track to track to track, just by listening to them individually. Sun King was one of those songs I never could really figure out what it's about. I did my research, I still got nothing. Other than the foreign language section was gibberish. They just made it up. They took a little Spanish, they took a little Liverpool slang, threw it all together. It's very lushly produced. It's short. Once again, the Beatles harmonize better than any human beings have a right to. But I gave this one in a close match to Kendrick. So Kendrick 10, Beatles 9.
All right, round 11, XXX, Triple X versus Mean Mr. Mustard. Mike, what do you got?
Finally, U2 is in the ring with the Beatles, sort of. But here it's a couple of small samples from U2. And the Beatles song is just over a minute long. So maybe someday we get U2 and the Beatles in the ring as full albums. That would be kind of fun. I like the transition between the styles in XXX. It's almost like two different songs that are mashed together, but they're not mashed together. He actually does a really good job transitioning between the different styles within the song. And then you've got that smoky lounge act. Mephisto version of Bono coming in with a couple of verses, just enough to kind of kick it into another gear. It's not enough U2, but then I'm pretty biased towards U2 in general. But I really did like XXX. I thought it was one of the highlights of the album. Mean Mr. Mustard is the unfortunate result of having to break that medley apart. It's a minute-long song. It's good, but it really can't compete. I don't think that it could compete with any song on Kendrick's album. So this is my first knockdown round, where I go 10-8 Kendrick. Just not enough there from the Beatles to really stand up.
All right. That's interesting. All right, so here's my critique of round 11, Mean Mr. Mustard. I wondered how these short songs were going to hold up, and while I'm going to be frustrated a little bit by Triple X, there's just more there. And it's not necessarily better, but Mean Mr. Mustard is another one of those things where I wish they would have explored this idea more. But that's not this song's job. This song's job is to be part of a multi-song movement, and so yeah, it negatively impacted the Beatles in this case. But let's talk about Triple X. There's a little bit of Public Enemy in this. There's a little bit of Slick Rick, and there's a lot of different things going on in here. And the problem that for me is, if you're going to have Rihanna come in the studio and really create something and create that vibe and that tension where Rihanna actually, she's forcing you to step up, otherwise she's going to steal your song from you. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with Bono? Like, he's as creative a person as you can have, and you take just this cool part of the song. I know right now that if you had brought him in, this song would elevate and be even higher. However, in this case, Me, Mr. Mustard just doesn't stack up enough stuff there. So this is still a 10-9 Kendrick round. Severe, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Even when you just take the Kendrick side, just when you first look at the album and you see it, U2, you go, okay, it's interesting, because you very rarely get that with hip-hop. So just the plus for that, the track was, the beat just crazy in a way that Kendrick rolled on it. Again, like, that's a great point. You could have brought Bono in if you really wanted to do something. But then, like, stacked up against Me, Mr. Mustard, which, like you said, wasn't really enough to go by, even though there'd be like a solid intro on like a intermission on a hip-hop track, just didn't have enough to compare to XXX. So 10-9, Kendrick over the Beatles.
All right, let's get into round 12, Polythene Pam and She Came In Through the Window versus Fear. So we've combined a couple of these multi-part song movements into one track here. And I don't know what to do. First off, it's complex to put three songs together, two of them being part of a larger medley, and it makes it a little bit weird to do. But I'm going to do my best to kind of say Fear, describing that and digging into the sources of it, and like all that stuff that his mom clearly would yell at him, like, you're going to fear somebody, you're going to fear me, because she's trying to keep him on the straight and narrow. And I loved that idea and just kind of capturing that moment. And he talks about loyalty later on in the song, about, money, and Rihanna, again, comes back right here, oddly enough. We're talking about her again later. That's how impactful she was in this thing. So there's some good callbacks, but when you're talking about money, the one element that's missing from this entire whole album, and I think it's telling in its absence, is trust. It's not one of the songs, and he doesn't have that. You don't need someone loyal to manage your money. You need someone you can trust. And so he definitely fears that, and I love that element and that mix of ideas together. So for me, this is a 10-9 round for Kendrick. Severe, do round 12.
So with Fear, again, another Beatles track that I'd never heard. Title's dope, and then the two introspectives dope. I love the drums and the guitar, especially on the Beatles. The Fear track for Kendrick, again, was one of those that kind of falls off for me. Still looks solid track, but didn't hold my attention enough, especially after coming after Triple X. So I gave Fear a 9 and the Beatles a 10, especially in She Came In Through. I like that.
Yeah, that's a good song. Mike, what about you?
Fear, it was an interesting song. It did draw me in a bit. I like starting with the phone conversation. There's a lot in this song. The song is just under 8 minutes long. And he's questioning his faith. He's scared about that. That's part of the fear. The right age to start questioning faith, late 20s, that makes sense. There's a lot more in the song, though. He just moves into all the things he can fear, and growing up where he grew up. There's just a lot of walking out the front door that you can, talking about fear of losing losing all his wealth, getting ripped off. But yeah, you're right, Pete. There's no trust. There's just fear all throughout. I think that he's got a lot to say, and he's earned the right to do so. But maybe some editing in this track. I started getting ear fatigue at maybe the 6-minute mark. I think maybe a couple of minutes could have gotten trimmed out of this one. Pam, She Came In Through the Bathroom Window. These tracks, and I've listened to Abbey Road so many times, probably lost count. These tracks always felt like a singles track anyways. They just do flow well together. Unfortunately, when separated from the rest of the medley, they do feel a bit disjointed because they feed in and feed out to other songs. Both songs are solid musically, as is every other track on Abbey Road. I always liked the stripped-down feel of Polythene Pam. You can hear as they transition from Pam to Bathroom Window that they're kind of chatting with the engineers and each other to get ready for the slight change in tempo. I kind of like that they're working together. I mean, that's what you want to hear in your Beatles, especially after all of the bad things that happened to that band for the year before that. They're both solid. They really work well when you listen to the whole side 2 suite all the way through. But I think when I really thought about it, Kendrick just squeaks this one out. I gave it to Kendrick 10-9 with another really close round.
All right, well, let's get into the penultimate round. Round 13, God versus Golden Slumber / Carry That Weight. Go ahead and kick us off, DJ Severe.
Okay, so here we are, the last 2 tracks on the album. It's kind of a good ride. So, God, to me, another great beat and a great ride for Trek. This was, I thought, his most, to me, introspective lyrics. And it's a difference to hear the songs that on Kendrick kind of fall off for me and draw you to, and it's different. I like the kind of introspective. It's kind of an outside looking in, different perspective, where I probably heard those kind of lyrics over and over and over again. You know what I mean? From different rappers, especially when I've heard it done better in the 90s, as probably you have too, when hip hop was first getting started and they first start telling the somewhat black story through hip hop. So it's kind of different. But God, to me, I like the message in God. I like the creative message in God. The beat, which is why I gave on Kendrick's side a 10. On the Beatles side, on Go to Slumbers and Carry That Weight. Just a solid story. Once again, it's almost like I'm discovering the Beatles at the top on tracks that I never even so it's like I have to lean in a little bit more on the Beatles side, but definitely solid. But God, to me, was a solid track on Kendrick. That's why I gave Kendrick 10 and the Beatles 9. But both solid.
Mike, what did you do in round 13?
I like God a lot. I think I've said that for every track, or with a few exceptions. I really like that repeated aha throughout. The singing part, again, another great combination singing rapping in this track. The lyrics are very complex, very revealing. He's revealing himself to the listeners again, which is really amazing, really courageous, I think, in some ways. I felt this song was kind of more about a God complex than God as a concept or what have you. Really strong music to go along with really deep lyrics. And there's a lot of tying back to the rest of the album throughout this song to really kind of start tightening things up. I thought the track got a little bit uneven towards the end. That's going to come back. At 4 minutes long, it's just long enough. But again, I think some of the ideas and some of both musically and lyrically get a little bit muddled towards the end of the track. And then you've got Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight. I think I immediately loved these 2 tracks, plus the one that comes after it, the very first time I heard the album. And step back a little bit. When I heard Abbey Road for the first time, I had a basic understanding of how Abbey Road fit into the Beatles catalog and the Beatles timeline. I think the Beatles were quite sure by the time they were doing these 3 tracks would be the end of the Beatles. Especially with the status of the album Get Back, which would eventually become Let It Be, still up in the air. They knew. John was ready to leave the band. They knew that this was it. So they really carried a tremendous amount of energy into these songs to make sure that the coda to their career as a group was going to be strong. Golden Slumbers by itself is a strong song. And then they go into Carry That Weight, where all 4 Beatles are singing together, probably for the last time. And it's kind of telling that these guys are going to carry the weight of being the Beatles for the rest of their lives. A close round here, but I think the history is making me lean more towards the Beatles in this case. So I gave it to the Beatles.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Mike. There's a lot of history here, and when you're talking about the culminating moments, this whole medley. I mean, as Paul designs it with George Martin, that's sort of what they're doing. How do we do all the codas? How do we sew all the whole career up? And that's what they're doing throughout these last short songs in this multi-part movement. Man, God has that line. Y'all got that I won, man. So that's like he's won. He's like, I've won. You guys got to check it out. And then he starts talking about what it's like to be him, and from where he's been to where he's at, where this is working. I've reached this level where I don't no longer even control my own money. I mean, that's a lot of success. But again, why not have J.R. Robinson in there drumming? Why do the drum machine for? I get that it's the current sound, but listen, Michael Jackson had no problem using J.R. Robinson. It's just there's too much talent in L.A. to rely on a machine all the time, and he denies himself that superstar elasticity that's demanded. But someone like JR is like, well, I know how to play that, and then he'd play it, and it's something you couldn't have thought of before. And I think the newer stars, especially guys like Bruno Mars, like you can get anybody to come in that room with you and stretch and push you and pull you in a new spot. You could have had Bono and you didn't do it. And so these choices are really, they're impacting how he'll go forward. I'm sure of it, because he wants to have the best people in the room. And they've got great people already, but they need to challenge themselves to get their hands off of those machines and on actual instruments. And I think that will tell. The weight is the band being nearly done. Paul is singing to them, each of them individually and together, and that weight is going to be heavy. But I do like God better, and I like the reflection of who he is and where he's been from in terms of this song. So I'm going to give this round 10-9 to Kendrick. Round 14. Holy shit, we did it. We're here at the end. The End versus Her Majesty. I'm sorry, The End and Her Majesty versus Duckworth. I'll go ahead and kick this one off and let these guys finish it up. So, Duckworth, I don't want to penalize Kendrick for anything. His album and his songs are all great throughout. There's really not a whole lot of softness in this thing. It's autobiographical. I love the one-song titles all the way through, and it's great. I wish I had a better understanding of the plight of a young black man, and he's trying to help me understand it here. I do feel like there's a lot of this that's already been done. NWA has done it. Public Enemy has done the hell out of it. There's a lot of that kind of thing. So can Kendrick find a new voice? I don't know. But what he can't do is top The End. Like you were saying in the last round, Mike, this is the Beatles wrapping everything up. They're in a jam session. Everybody gets their solo. And I love that even though they're breaking up, they're still friends. So it's still John, it's still George, it's still Paul, exchanging guitar solos, going top this, top that, and having a great time playing. Ringo, they force him to play, and they force Ringo to play a solo. But then that last line, the last thing they record together in the same room, and this is legitimate. This is what they leave us with is, the love you take is equal to the love you make. And that is a beautiful way to end a career and a band. And I go this one 10-9 Beatles. Mike, how did you do it?
So I'll start with Duckworth, which is a strong ending. I was like, what the hell is Duckworth? And it didn't take me very long to figure out that's Kendrick Lamar's actual last name. I'm not a huge fan of backmasking, and it's kind of funny that you're using backmasking, and nobody ever. It's not like Kendrick was saying, "Oh yeah, the Beatles were the first band to do backmasking, so I'm going to do it here." It's just our funky format puts it this way. I like the storytelling aspect of this song and how it really ties back to what he's doing now and somebody he's working with now. An earlier encounter could have gone way, way worse and way differently and much, much more badly. I think kind of the funky sounds that he uses and kind of in that backmasking really distracts from the song near the end. I do like how there's a tie back to track one, then it's going up against the end. And this is really, Pete said a lot of what I've got on my notes here too. This is the Beatles tying a bow on their career. Each one of the Beatles kind of gets to take a bow in this song, starting with Ringo, who never did a drum solo in their entire catalog, entire recorded career of the Beatles. And they're saying, hey, Ringo, you do one. And he does it. And then they do that rapid fire 9 guitar solos in a row where it goes Paul, then George, then John. And they're kind of one-upping, but tying into each other. Those guitar solos are there. You can hear each of the styles, but they fit together. You've got Paul with those super quick style notes, and then George with that note bending that he does better than many other guitarists. You can't top that. I know a lot of bands have tried. A lot of bands have covered the end. Nobody has touched what the Beatles did. It's a great ending to a great album, and of course the line, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. It's a good way to end a career.
Severe, go ahead and close us out. What do you have for round 14?
Wow, I'm kind of lacking in to close this out. I'm going to be the least introspective because you guys just did a documentary. I had no idea about these last 3 tracks. So I'm kind of like falling off, which I had no idea this was like such a history ending to not only the album, but to the group itself, which I had no idea. Wish my schedule wasn't so crazy hectic. I could have did more introspective diving into this. But what I can say is like, wow, that's such a great history lesson. And especially Mike, you wax so poetically on that one as far as just everything in this track. I got to revisit this and then dive more into it, which actually, as I was going through this album fight, I said I need to do more history and then look into more of the documentaries behind this. But that being said, on the Kendrick side with Duckworth, that was probably my 3rd favorite track on the whole damn project. I'm hearing more and more DJs use it, which is making me try to figure out where I can fit it into some of my sets. But it is one of the more solid tracks for me, which is why I gave it a 10. The end, and then not even having that, the end, Her Majesty, not even having that perspective, that Beatles outlet from just being a true fan and knowing what really was a history that was going on. Again, a solid track. It just didn't do enough for me against Duckworth, which I'm learning different ways to use that and where I can use that. I'm always coming from a DJ perspective or from a hip hop ear perspective, which is why I gave Duckworth 10 and then the end, Her Majesty, a 9. But like I said, my synopsis of this does no justice to yours and what was really going on with the band at that time. So I'm going to quietly salute out and give you guys the nod on that one and give you guys both 10s on your rating of those last 3 songs and what was going on with the Beatles, because I need to step my game up.
Well, that's one of the benefits of doing these album fights is we all get to learn something and appreciate an album from a different perspective, if nothing else.
Right.
And did you say anybody doesn't know? We love this. We love these albums. We wouldn't put a musician in the ring that we didn't believe in. And so Thank you guys for a long Sunday morning between technical difficulties and everything else we've slogged through, but we did the work. We've created our own little bit of art, and I think that we're all going to be rewarded for that. So thank you for taking the time with me today, fellas. Let's get Richard's post-fight analysis done.
Again, after the last 2 weeks of fights, I don't think there's a whole lot more to be said about these albums. We know they're great. Let's look at the numbers. As predicted, this one was a squeaker. 2 judges to 1 for the Beatles. Taking into account the unofficial cards, we got the same exact ratio with 4 judges to 2 for Abbey Road. Scores were even closer, with the Beatles only winning by 1 point on the official cards. And when adding in the unofficial cards, it was a dead even tie on points. So what was the difference? Well, in expected rounds, the Beatles won 8 of the 9 points. And in Lamar's expected rounds, he only won 6 of his, giving the Beatles basically a +2 ratio when it comes to expected rounds. But they only won by 1 point, you say. So where did Lamar make that up? Well, there was only 1 knockdown in the fight, and that was against the Beatles, making it a -1 for the Beatles. Add those together, and it's a +1 for the Beatles, and they won by 1 point. Also of note, the Beatles got 22 10s on the official cards, and Lamar got 20. Averaging that between 3 judges, and what do you get? 7.3 to 6.67 for the Beatles. Pre-fight prediction, 7-6 for the Beatles. The patent pending numbers, once again, back to you guys.
And that's what I think too, Richard. It was surprising. I can see on the scorecard that, of course, the Beatles do win this thing, but it's a split decision. surprising because Abbey Road, again, is considered to be one of the best albums of all time, and we worked hard to find two albums that we thought could win to get in to play these guys, and Kendrick stood the test, and I would gladly stand in front of him and tell him I think the heck of the world of his album, and thought so much of it that I was confident that he could go in and hold his own against Abbey Road, and they did. What are your guys' thoughts now that we know that we've got a split decision, and it's against one of the greatest albums ever for Kendrick?
Well, I'm looking at the scorecard now. I tried not to look at it until after we were done. And it is 1 point in aggregate between Kendrick and the Beatles. When you add up all three of our scores, it's 400 to 399. It does not get any closer than that. I know personally I have a lot of respect for Kendrick Lamar now, and I know I'm going to be spinning his stuff a lot more. Which a lot more could be once, because like I said before, I was a neophyte. I'm relying on you, Severe, to give me an education on his earlier albums and which tracks you think I would like.
Any final thoughts, Severe?
I definitely appreciate this. When I first saw the card come up, I said, "Oh, that's pretty interesting." And I said, "This is one that's going to pull up." I mean, and I was also, like I said, interested in learning more about the Beatles. And I thank you again for your introspective history. It's hard on this Kendrick album because a lot of people, this is when they first started talking about mentioning Kendrick in some of the top. Is he a top of all time? Is this, that, and other? So it created a different type of conversation from the hip hop side now and past. So people started talking about that based on this album. A lot of the older cats like that are our age were like, no, you can't give that title yet. But I thought they might have just a little bit hard because they don't want to really give up take away from anybody like a Jay-Z or a Biggie or not. So it's kind of been a fight that way, but it's interesting to get the perspective from like both sides. It's definitely a solid album. We have to see where Kendrick goes from here. Obviously the Beatles can't go any further from here. So see where it goes. And I look forward to definitely Mike sharing you some of my Kendrick favorites, which I'm still kind of learning them myself because I don't get a chance to dive into it as much from a DJ perspective. I'm always listening for like what I can use to do my job. So it's kind of hard for me to get into albums as much, but I do have some favorites I can definitely shoot your way and share. But I thank you again for the history lesson that I needed for the beat on the Beatles side.
Well, guys, I'll close it up and say thank you to both again. Thank you for your Sunday morning. I hope everybody enjoys this. This will be up for a long time, so if you guys have disagreements, for sure, hit me up in the notes. Grab me on Twitter. You can grab DJ Severe on Twitter. You can grab Mike on Twitter. We're all available. That'll all be in the show notes. Thank you again to everybody. You all have a good weekend.